Good evening. Today it is January the 7th in the new year 2024, and this date is important because this is private so-called detective work, and it is about my father. And first of all, his birth date is put into, and this was a custom when someone did not know, or it was not recorded, his real date of birth. And this was of course not openly communicated, but it was back then possible. And he came from a tribe system that had its branches toward the east, and it was the time even before this structure that represents a little bit the emperor system of the German Reich. And this was put together from those countries, some of them you can see. And it is important to acknowledge that it was only oral tradition. And the reason is that the war, the Second World War, made so much damage. And the main city of that what was communicated to me was Breslau, Wrocław, but there were rumors they had port as well, not as a possession, but as an access point on their travel routes. And it is really important to acknowledge that things changed maybe in the 17th century, when those who were traveling till then, they were sometimes called gypsies, but not only. There were traveling folks on the waters and also on land. And it was communicated as historical legends, or things passed on, not necessarily with the exact dates, but to learn how the times had changed. And it is interesting, he was much older, maybe 30 years. I learned over time things that only between us, my mother and me, maybe at night time, was exchanged. And I was very curious, and I got answers, sometimes no answers, but as well by not telling, or by looking in a way you could understand what she was not telling. And to recognize her, this is my mother, the older. She was called grandmother to the outside world and also inside the family. And this is at a younger age, my mother the younger. And this was only one time communicated, in the sense that my mother the younger said she had to lie. because there were difficulties, medical difficulties. And so one helped the other. And I was perplexed and thought, okay, this time is by. That was, and there was a problem, better it has been, it is closed. But now when I look back, it is important that there had been secrets. And everything had to do a little bit, and this was from a certain time on, not questioned anymore. It had to do with the change of times. And I want to give oversight. I use some paper for it. It is important to understand that time had changed. And maybe this is, I don't know the date of his birth, the real date. I know the date when it was put into the records, but I don't know the real date. And what we all know is when the First World War, 10, 20, 14, it was this relatively small time, and then 50, then it was 39. Most of us don't know that the times between had not been very peaceful. There wasn't a world war, but there had been conflicts, military conflicts as well. And when you understand that, what was not communicated to the other members of the called, from me so-called Petrarch family, their profession was military. But it was not only military, it was sometimes police work and also diplomatic work. And I want to find it out. This is not more sure than by seeing who told me and how sure those sources were. And that was, of course, first of all, my mother. When she told it to me, or she communicated it to me, this was not that she was telling stories, but I was curious. And I asked the others also. And we had time to communicate. It was the garden work. This is my raising father. It was not communicated that he wasn't biologically, but it was expressed in some way. But he was a caring father, he was a raising father, so that was no bigger problem than by natural conflicts we all had. And those natural conflicts in Germany had to do with the time after the war. It was the so-called Wirtschaftswunder, and then it somehow stopped. And there were work shortage. Too many were without a job, and the raising father was conflicted as well. That was a problem. Then there was the little house built. It was from this on. And I overheard many times that the loans were a burden. So the normal conflicts of life, the financial survival and so on, were there. And then there had been the judicial aftermath, or the work to solve the judicial problems of the Hitler era. And this was going on. And there was a group of people, and we have the speciality that here in this town many converted, I don't know how much, it was of course a private matter, so not openly known, converted from Judaism to the Catholic religion. And this was for protection reasons, and this must have happened, it once stood in the papers, it must have happened before the war, but this is not totally sure. So what I'm doing here is trying to find out if the oral tradition that was secretly passed on, because the military families were, after World War I, gone into hiding. I heard people, not openly, but visitors, talk about it, and it was always good that the old bad times are over. So I felt quite secure in my time. This was my birth. I felt quite secure, but I got the idea the others were they were having some trouble feeling secure. This was not openly, and then there was one thing I want to tell a little bit about. There had been the time when, and this was communicated between families in this area. Let me say this was end of the war. (1950). It was nearly exactly, let me say, 82, I don't know. It was approximately 1982. There was a program to surveil a house. And this is no good drawing. The idea was to give some security. I couldn't say, or I can't say that there had been Nazis around, but the ideas that was in some heads was that those who were looked after, I don't know, maybe who were alleged criminals or could have been, those defended against those who were looking for them, and the other way around. So this house surveillance was put into place where those who had been persecuted. And it was strange that someone came to our doorstep and asked if we needed security as well. And somehow, at this little house, there was talk. I was standing with the mother, the younger, in the garden, and an electrician explained how this could be done. and it was a system from a neighboring country, and those were regarded as trustworthy. And it was a system, let me say, I can remember how they explained it. This is the house. This is the house. It's no good drawing. Then there's a device. I don't know what this device was supposed to do. Maybe giving vibrations. Yeah. And then there was a reflection, and it was seen how many people are in the house, number of people. And if there had been a change, it was communicated to the center. And I don't know, most likely this was on the telephone. This was on the telephone, so there was a device thought about to install at our house. And as a child, I was not informed about everything. I was just allowed to hear it, or I was, of course, I was interested because it was going on. It had to do with our house. And I can remember that the next day, my mother, the younger, she was phoning, and this was before this. Here I am approximately 17. It was maybe 5 years before. She was phoning to a telephone number and complaining that this would give her sickness to the stomach. And today I'm looking after evidence that there had been the idea we would be a danger, because we do not belong to the ideologists of the Third Reich, of course not, and not to the Jews either, or either. That is American, either. We didn't belong to one or the other. Why were there the idea we could need protection by such a house device? And this is a question, and I'm looking into it. Maybe someone knows where to look, because this could have been a device, a surveillance, how to, oh, let me, house security. And it was in the Netherlands, in the center of it. It is in the Netherlands, and maybe somebody knows if this is still there. It was not much. It was only a device connected, I think, via the telephone. And then it was counted how many people were in the house. As I said, I felt quite secure. It was the time when you could go out and you came back when it was dark. And that then was no longer possible, as people said. I was then older than a young boy, and this was the age when I was traveling. It stopped mostly when I had to go to school. I can remember that visitors said to me, and I must have spoken English till then, at school it was not that easy. The host, not the visitor, I was with the visitor, the host said, you will go to school a little bit, maybe you will jump over one class or the other, but it wasn't that easy. I was rather no schoolboy. I was a little bit too curious. sitting long on one place was not too much for me, but I learned it over time. So thank you very much, and this video is to look, first of all I gave an oversight about the difficulties of time change, and then I want to look into the reason why there had been the idea, and he was standing in the garden with my mother the younger, and they were talking it over, and it must have been something privately. Now I'm thinking about it. Were we in danger because we weren't on one side or the other? Or were we regarded belonging to one side or the other? And this could have been difficulty as well because I did not know. I'm now forced to speculate to find out. Thank you very much.